Rock me, mama.
All right, welcome back.
Welcome back. I'm Macy.
And I'm Amie, and this is Rock Me Mama.
We have a guest today, and we're so excited to have her here. Her name is Joni. She is the CEO and founder of Beli, Beli, which is, it's actually the prenatal that I take, but it's not just prenatal. There's also fertility supplements and collagen. So, and we're going to let her, I don't even want to say much more because I want her to just fully dive in and talk about
how and why you started Beli.
Yes. Well, it's a different path for me. And hi, thank you for having me. So nice to meet y'all. It's a different path for me. I started out, I've been in tech my entire career, which is a long career. And so I've been marketing software for most of my life. And I think it's different when you start your journey to parenthood, but in my case, right, to motherhood, and, hit a few bumps along the way. And, and I know that as women, we turn to our friends and we turn to other people to really kind of say, hey, I'm on this path. Have you experienced this? And, can you help me in some way? But I really looked at everybody had that jagged path. I think it's rare for you to have a straight path between I want to get pregnant, I'm going to get pregnant, because even though I did get pregnant, I'm lucky enough to have 3 beautiful children, I had major breastfeeding issues. So, and now, raising kids, right? And so it's stressful, right?
Yes.
It's stressful.
Oh my gosh. And they don't talk about how stressful it is.
It was so stressful. Like I was bundled on the floor crying all the time. And I consider myself a pretty, strong woman and, this whole part of my journey. So that led me to really look at kind of what was going on in the market and what could I take or what could I do? And so it just led to Beli. And when I looked at Beli, I looked at, and I went and did a quick Google search. I'm like, okay, what are the top 10 vitamins selling on Amazon? I looked, not one of them meant current guidelines.
Oh, wow.
And those formulas were literally probably 30 years old. Oof. And you know what? Here's the sad thing. They're still out there.
Yeah.
And so, it's people, it's a considered purchase when you're buying a prenatal. It's not like I'm going to pop this one off the shelf, at my local, whatever. You really want to know that what you're putting in your body is doing what it's supposed to do. And I found that most of them don't.
Yeah.
And that was scary, right? Because I know when you're growing, I wasn't as great about myself, like what I put in my body and what I was eating before I got pregnant. And once I did, man, I was like, is it good for me? Is it good for my baby? Am I doing the right thing? Right. Yeah. I hate drinking water, but I forced myself to drink those, all that water every day. But I think that's what we do as moms. So that turned into just kind of my personal passion. And I was lucky enough to start that journey. I'm like, I'm going to just make a better prenatal because I want it for me. I want to know that what I put in my body, just like I do what I put on my skin, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we do enough, awareness to say, okay, we're putting something in our bodies. We think it's good for us because it's a vitamin, but is it really? And so that's kind of where that question came.
Yeah.
Now on that journey, and by the way, it took 18 months to formulate Beli for women.
Wow.
But we stopped because we had 9 different people on the team, 9 different disciplines, from OBGYNs to nutritionists to fertility nutritionists to fertility doctors to chemists to scientists, whatever. And they all had a different point of view. But in all of the research, when we were looking up nutrients, it talked about the effect on sperm, the effect on men, the effect on men's fertility. And I'm like, there's such thing as a men's fertility, right? Honestly, that sounds silly, right? But I'm like, wow, oh my gosh, there's nothing out there for men. So we flipped a little and we're like, hey, we think there's a big gaping hole here to help, in the market and to help get men, to step up, because there's a lot of things that they can do. Sperm health is very
I love that because it's so much on the woman, the pressure, all of it. And I feel like we don't focus on the male part of it, where it's like you could be contributing to the fact that it's hard to get pregnant.
Yeah, like your health matters.
Your health matters too. But I think society just so easily puts it all on the woman.
Oh, for sure. And I think that still exists a lot of cases today. Like I have multiple friends here who've gone through IVF multiple rounds. And, aside from your sperm count's fine, that was really the only analysis that they were doing on the men's side. And then 6 years later, it's like, oh, we think there's something wrong with him.
Yeah. And she's been through hell. Yeah.
Right. And she's been through hell, and she's been poked and prodded. And and my girlfriend, she's on every Eastern medicine thing. She's doing acne, right? So it's like we do. And I think, I said this in 2018. I say it today, right? The burden of getting pregnant, staying pregnant is on the woman. And it's just time that we make this an equal equation between both, because sperm.
I love that.
50% of the equation.
I want to pound my chest right
now.
I know.
I want to stand up. No, it's true though. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah. And it's, sperm health. It's when you're on that fertility journey, right, there are modifiable lifestyle choices you can make that you should be doing, right, to help that. And which is, one of them is your diet, right? We're very much food first, right? You should be eating healthy. And
can
then
you kind of get more in depth about what's a good fertility diet?
Oh, I don't have a magic diet. I know that in all of our research, like the Mediterranean diet comes up the most.
Yeah.
But I think in general, just eating healthy and eating whole foods and lean meats and fresh, produce and kind of all of that. And antioxidants are huge, right? So I think just eat healthy. I don't think there's some magic fertility diet, but I have seen, out of everything I've looked at, everybody comes back to that Mediterranean diet.
Yeah.
And guys, you should be eating your nuts. So that keeps coming up too. So nuts.
Don't eat them. So you're saying a DiGiorno pizza for lunch and Taco Bell for dinner is not good? Oh, that's so sad for me.
Sorry. Yeah. I mean, you got to do what you got to do because you're pregnant.
You're already pregnant, honey. Yeah.
But no, I think, as with anything, your health, men's sperm health is an indicator of their overall health. If you're not healthy, your sperm's not healthy. That's just how it is. So, for guys, it's, those modified lifestyle decisions they can make. Your diet, stop smoking, don't drink, don't do drugs, right? If you're on prescription medication, talk to your doctor. And hey, here is something super novel. You know how when we try to get pregnant, we go to our OBGYN, we're like, now's the time, we're ready to go. And she's like, here, pop a prenatal and good luck and let me know how it goes in 6 months or a year or whatever that looks like. Guys should be doing the same thing. Guys should be going to their doctor, whether it's a primary care or their urologist that specializes in men's health and men's fertility, and go say, hey, we're going to start our journey. What should I be doing? Right. But that doesn't come up.
That does not happen.
No.
What happens is, like you said, a woman struggles for 6 years and then the guy goes, oh, maybe I should get checked out.
Right.
And it shouldn't be like that.
Right.
And there's so much stigma. It's not even getting checked. There's all these at-home sperm tests. Like, why not?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do that? Right. Why wouldn't you go, hey, to my doctor, I might have some concerns, or maybe I don't, but I just want to know that everything's okay. Right. There's at-home sperm tests you can take, but that the earlier you can, start to take care of your fertility health, the better off you'll be down the road. But then even if you do, turn to fertility care, right, and seeking some different alternative, options, still getting healthy is still a really important and integral part of that process, no matter where you're at on that journey.
Yeah. So walk us through, say I've had 2 kids, I am done. So this does not apply to me, but there are probably women who, we actually do have some listeners that are not moms yet who have told us that. Most of our listeners are already moms.
Or they're pregnant.
Yeah. So, for the women who maybe, just had their kid not too long ago and they know they're going to want a second one, or for the, small amount of listeners who aren't yet moms but know they want to be someday, what's like the timeline of when to start taking a prenatal, and obviously there's no timeline on health. We always want to be our healthiest.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a good reason to be our healthiest when we are trying to conceive or when we're pregnant, but that starts way before we are trying to do that. But in terms of vitamins and supplements and all of that, when is the best time to start taking a prenatal?
So prenatals are really good in general, right? But because there's so many extra nutrients in there, it's probably not a good everyday multivitamin. But I think one thing you hit on is super important is that, your fertility journey doesn't start the day you decide you're going to start trying.
Right.
And so, 3 months doesn't erase 10 years of bad behavior. Mm-hmm. So I would say your journey starts very young, right? And the more work you do to nourish it early on, the better off you'll be down the road. And there's only so much we can control in this journey. There's so much that's out of our control, but what we can is our health. Now, when we're talking about prenatals, like, talk to your doctor, because that's really where you should be going to first. But, that 3 to 6 month kind of preconception window is really where you need to start thinking about that, especially if you're coming off birth control. Mm-hmm. Because even though birth control doesn't hurt your fertility, what it does is it depletes certain nutrients in your body.
Yep.
And so, when you come off of that, or when you're on birth control, really think about, what should I be, taking, zinc or B6 or whatever, because it does deplete those nutrients. And so what happens is when you do start and you're in that preconception window time frame, is you're trying to build up nutrient stores that maybe you were deficient in. I mean, that's a good thing to get checked, right? If your vitamin D levels are low, it takes a while for those to get built up. And you do have to take it every day to kind of maintain those levels. So I would say in terms of a prenatal, talk to your doctor for sure. But I would say definitely in that 3 to 6 months before you're going to try is when you should really, really start thinking about what those nutrients are that you may be missing and making sure you're getting those, whether it's in your diet or you take a supplement.
Yeah.
And you continue taking it after you've had your child, or do you move to a postnatal? What happens then?
Yeah. And here's what I did not know either. I mean, I've been on this learning journey myself.
Yeah.
Is that there's a book I read called The Postnatal Depletion. And in it, he says it takes 10 years for a woman's body to recover from a pregnancy.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I
don't either.
And so we all pop out our baby, and then it's, off to the cute little baby, and we're tired. And we wonder why we're tired, and we've got some baby blues, and we've got kind of all this going on. We're breastfeeding. And I believe that you should continue to take a multivitamin or take your prenatal.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a few postnatals out there, and I know that's on our radar too, because it's super important. And it's not just important for your recovery, which is mamas, you need to take care of yourselves. You have to, but also because if you do choose to breastfeed, right, that extra choline and the vitamin D and all the stuff that needs to get to your baby through your breast milk, or you want to get to your baby through your breast milk, you need more, right? So during pregnancy, the recommended amount of choline is 450 milligrams. When you're breastfeeding, it's 550.
Wow.
And we have Dr. Taylor Wallace, who's this choline expert on our board. And he's every day that number moves up and up and up in terms of how much choline you need. It's going to be really hard for you to get that from your diet. But that's one consideration you really need to look at when you are post, is making sure that you're still getting, because once you go through labor and delivery, your nutrients are depleted once again, right? So you can't just stop not making sure that you're getting the right diet and the right, nutrients, or continuing with a postnatal or your prenatal, right? To help you with that recovery.
That kind of when you postpartum fatigue mentally and emotionally and physically is unlike anything that you'll ever experience. And you just can't possibly understand it unless you've done it.
Like pure depletion.
And you just can't, the same thing with breastfeeding. Everyone knows it's going to be hard when they have a kid, right? You're mentally trying to prepare yourself. Okay, this is going to be really hard. This is going to be really tough, but this is going to be really beautiful. Yeah. Nobody freaking tells you about the element of breastfeeding and how humongous of a deal that is.
Yeah.
I remember my mom telling me, your nipples are really going to hurt. And they're really, really going to hurt more than you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Right.
And then I remember her just telling me how much she loved nursing, and she nursed all 4 of us, but she in her memory, because sometimes over time you forget the trauma.
Yeah.
In her memory, she just loved nursing. And it was something for her that she was so sad when we stopped. And so immediately when I started realizing, okay, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and I'm crying hysterically while I'm nursing my baby for hours and hours on end, endless on-demand feeding. Yeah. And it's just relentless. And it just feels the feeling of inadequacy.
Yeah.
When you start to breastfeed, I think it's the most lonely feeling in the entire world.
Well, and we've talked about this so much. Joni, my son is 5 months old right now. And I've been through a hell of a breastfeeding journey with him. We are on the other side of it. I'm very happy to say, we're there, we're doing it. It's good, but it has been the hardest thing I've done in my entire life. But it's the feelings of inadequacy and the expectation going into either a first-time mom thinking, oh, well, it's natural. Breastfeeding is natural. So I know how to do it. But like, you don't. And I do think to some women, they get lucky and it does come naturally.
Yeah.
But for most, it doesn't. And then I also think second-time mom, you think, well, I've done it before, so I'm going to be able to do it again. But it's a completely different kid and a completely different connection. And it's like doing it for the first time all over. It is doing it for the first time all over it again. So it's breastfeeding is.
What was your experience like? What it obviously changed you and made you want to start a prenatal. So
yeah. Oh, you guys, feelings of inadequacy doesn't even get to the root of what was going on. So my first daughter was 5 days early. My milk came in late.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know, first time mom, right? And she latched on. I'm like, great, we're going for it. Like she latched on in the hospital, and then no milk.
Oh yeah.
And so you call in, you're like, hey, this is what's going on, because they have all the lactation consultants there, and they're like, don't give her a bottle, just keep trying, it'll work. Meanwhile, she's crying because she's hungry, and I tried everything. This is where Googling comes in.
Yeah.
I tried fenugreek. My mother told me that her 90-year-old bridge partner told me to drink a Guinness beer. I drank that beer.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, I did it too.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and then I didn't just have those pretty little pumps. I went to the hospital and got an industrial pump.
So did I.
Right. And so I'm sitting there for just in my little rocker chair, and I just had these, and I didn't move. That's what I did. And so I ended up taking a drug called Reglan. Oh,
yes. I've heard of that.
Right.
My mom has told me about it.
Right. I don't even know what it's really for. I think it's some heart thing. I don't, but the side effect is breast milk.
Wow.
And it worked, but weird, right?
Yeah. Crazy.
And so, it was weird. And so I remember going to my pediatrician, and I'm crying, and I'm like, she's hungry, and she was losing weight, but the lactation consultants were saying, don't give up, don't give her a bottle, because the nipple, the confusion, nipple confusion.
Yeah.
He looked at me and he goes, feed your daughter, get her formula.
Yep.
Yeah.
And do whatever you need to do.
Feed your kid.
Be just fine.
Yeah.
And so was he. And I was like, right. Because the pressure of trying to do the right thing, and and it's just every journey is different. So you just got to do what works for you. But for some reason, that was so just liberating, just because he's like, she will be fine.
Yeah.
You will be fine. So we'll all work out in the end. So in the end of the day, I didn't have all the milk in the world, but I did enough, and I still was able to have that,
to do both.
Connection. Yeah. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Now my second one ate like a horse, and she was big as a horse, but I mean, that's the kind of journey where you go on, and you're getting all this different information.
That's
and
the part,
right?
And it starts immediately in the hospital,
because you think that the fact that you almost probably felt like you had permission to formula feed her, which that's not how it. And that's not your fault. That's because of everything that you've heard. You needed to breastfeed your daughter when the pediatrician's right. She needed to be fed regardless of what that looked like. And, I don't want to take away from the fact that you did really want to feed her, because I do think that the mom's emotions do play a part in that. If the mom wants to breastfeed, then I get that fight for it, because I've done that myself this time. But you put those pressures on yourself because society puts those pressures on you, that it's got to be breastfeeding, and it's got to be breast milk. And, the lactation consultants are saying, don't give the bottle because she's going to be confused. And all you needed
she just wants to eat.
Right. And all you needed to hear was just feed her. And for you just to feel that literal, just sinking into your own body, being like, it's okay. It's a shame that, I think every mom feels that pressure of what is societally best.
Very hard, I think, and it stems a lot of I don't know if it's, we talked to our psychotherapist, Meg, who we had on. I don't know if they're directly related, but I think a lot of women struggling with breastfeeding also are struggling with feelings of postpartum and just feeling so low because of the chemicals and the hormones, and then the inadequacy and the loneliness and the isolation that when you're breastfeeding or trying to breastfeed, the isolation of it. Because not everybody feels comfortable. I mean, I was super anxious and did not feel comfortable like going out and about right away with Farrah. And I wasn't comfortable just whipping a titty out wherever I was. Like, oh, cool. Now it's like, by the end, it was no big deal. But in the beginning, it's like, it's not natural.
No, it's not
You
natural.
feel self-conscious and you feel, like just, you don't want everybody staring at you trying, especially because she was such a fussy eater. It's like you're sitting out there, if you're out in public, you're like trying to get your nipple in someone's mouth in front of people. And you're like, oh my God, just please latch.
I would feel like imposter syndrome in those times. Like people are going to think I don't know what I'm doing, which like who cares? But that was
But you do care. It's the same when your baby starts having nervous breakdowns in public and you're like, oh my God, everyone's going to think I'm such a bad mom. Then you get over it because you realize that toddlers have nervous breakdowns. And every mom goes through it. But like in the beginning with breastfeeding, it was the same thing. I was just always kind of embarrassed about not being able to just look so beautiful and natural doing it. I only made enough for her. I could barely pump. In the beginning, she was losing a lot of weight. And it was just, it's so stressful. And you just feel so terrible.
Yeah, it's not easy at all. So you have 3, correct? Children. So at what point did Beli come into? Was this like after all 3 of them, or?
Yeah, it was after I'd had them, right? And I think my friends were still on, their journeys, and I think that's part of it too. I think a lot of at least my friends were having children later and getting married a little bit later in life, and so that whole kind of IVF or journey was new to me, but everybody was going through it, and they were like, Joni, what should we do? Joni, and we'd all talk in our group. But I think more so is that there's someone who works for me, who had her super close to me, who had her baby, and she had, I don't know the correct term, but it was, she could have lost the baby because she found out that she could not absorb folate.
Oh, wow.
So she didn't know that until after. And so when we started like really looking at it, and just doing a little bit of research, like what we do, we're like, wow, with the MTHFR gene, right? And a lot of people not being able to process folate. And by the way, they're actually finding out that may be the case with choline too. We may have a gene that prevents us from absorbing it in a way.
Whoa,
that's still early research. Okay. But you're like, there's something we can do here. And so I started a company in 2011 called Good. And so I've kind of I always had this passion for health and wellness and finding good products and choosing good toys for my children. Like I would only buy them the toys with the European label. I mean, I'm not a perfect mom. Like I'm not, I will shop in the middle of the grocery store too. Right. But, I just wanted to find products that were good. And so I started this, and it became kind of like a search engine of just attributes that people cared about, whether it was gluten-free or whether it was made in the USA or whether or not it had a European, logo on it. And so that's kind of where I started my health and wellness journey. But then it was more and more my friends went through, and I knew I wanted to formulate a product. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I was really on kids sunscreen for a really, really long time. I still think there's room in that market for a good new product. Yeah. But I think that's when it started. But I think it was just more so, I think it's just more so, it was just came naturally about just by talking to my friends and really, really knowing that there was a difference I could make here and better products I could bring to market.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
how long has Beli been a thing? How long has it been around?
So founded in 2018, we came out with our first product in April of 2019.
Okay.
It takes a while to come out and to formulate, but
that seems like it's not even that long. I feel like it would take like years and years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Tell us, because I want to talk about all the supplements that Beli has, not just the prenatal, but because I think prenatal, I don't want to say prenatal is a buzzword, but women who get pregnant, I do think, without knowing anything about pregnancy and health and diet and supplements and all of that, I think that prenatal is a word that 99.9% of women have heard. So when women are looking for prenatal, what do they want to look for? And obviously we're advocates.
We're promoting
Beli,
you.
Right. Yeah. But just so what are the ingredients of a prenatal?
Yeah. What are the non-negotiables?
Prenatal. Yeah.
Well, the non-negotiables, right, are folic acid. We use folate, not folic acid. Non-negotiables are choline. Non-negotiables are vitamin D. We don't put vitamin A in ours. I mean, they're just different. But really, we look at what are the recommendations, right? So prenatals are pretty, like, this is what's recommended for a woman going through. Now, here's the deal, too, is that, your body does need different nutrients in the different trimesters that you have. So it is, we wanted to get more to where it was, by stage. But there is a certain level of recommended nutrients that you do need in elevated numbers, right? And folic acid, folate's one of them. Choline's another one. Vitamin D, magnesium is huge. We have B12, B6, right? So there are a number of solid nutrients that you need. So I would say, though, if you're going out to look for a prenatal, you really have to look at the choline amount that's in there. You really have to look at whether it's folate or folic acid. And see what makes sense for you. And then I think the rest, everybody's pretty similar. But for us, I know right now we looked at it and we were the only ones meeting guidelines for like magnesium, iodine. We have iron in ours. We have high levels of vitamin D. So there's just, different like new research that we really look to kind of say, what is the amounts? Because you'll see it vary. Yeah. I know we talked about, different prenatals earlier, like the choline levels. When we came out with Beli for Women, I'd say a handful actually had choline in their formulas because it's relatively new in terms of being recommended for pregnant and lactating women. But it rivals up there with folate in terms of development because it's cognitive development for your baby. Which is as important as folate for spine. So that was really super important. Like, wow, nobody, at the time, and I think there's even a lot of prenatals on the market that don't even have choline today. So that's a non-negotiable, you guys, in your prenatal. And as well, we're big advocates for folate, but that's something, whether you want to do folic acid or folate, it's the same thing, right? Folic acid is just a synthetic form of folate, but that's a non-negotiable too. But then, the amounts, whether you have magnesium and super important, whether you want, iron, we chose to put iron in ours, but we have, and what's also interesting about this journey, it's not just the nutrient that goes in it, but the form, right? The form of it, like the form of our iron is easier to digest than other forms of iron, right? So when we look at, hey, mamas, you're going through morning sickness at any point in your pregnancy, right? What's really going to help you? Well, higher levels of B6, right? Your minerals they're in a form that are easier for you to digest. Those are really important too. That's really going to, help make your journey a little bit easier, or, if not, and if you're just going with something that maybe doesn't have that bioavailable, higher quality nutrients, right? You're going to have a little bit harder time digesting.
Okay.
What about, can you talk a little, there's collagen, right?
Yeah.
You do collagen.
We do collagen, not just for hair and nails and skin. But,
I'm super interested in collagen. Like I've done some of the collagen powders, but like just as a woman who's 40, I know that like collagen is super important for elasticity and just the aging process.
And bones.
It is.
And bones.
Yeah. So we do have a collagen protein, correct. And it's good for when you have, so our needs for protein are elevated during pregnancy, right? And especially after. And
you take collagen during pregnancy?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, always talk to your doctor, but there's nothing that says, it's a protein.
Okay.
It's just a protein plus amino acids. And that's what really helps your baby develop more than just a protein. But, when you're talking skin elasticity or helping to maintain blood sugar levels, or maybe helping with a nausea, right? Because protein is good. Helping with postpartum, depletion. You can, you need higher levels of protein once you've had the baby. That's where a collagen protein really comes into play. So it's protein, right? But it's a collagen protein, so it has more of the amino acids. But in terms of just keeping your body healthy, right? Your skin, your joints, right? So as mama's carrying that baby, a lot of pressure on your joints, on your bones. Collagen's really, really good for that too. So we think it's a better source of protein for you on your pregnancy journey, just because of what we're supporting and growing and what our body is carrying, right, during that time. Plus the added benefits of your skin and your hair, kind of all of that. But that's just right. The difference is that when we looked at because we were looking at protein powders, and when we looked at the market, most of the collagen out there, right, is for beauty.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which means that you have some extra nutrients that maybe you don't want to be ingesting when you're pregnant.
Okay.
Maybe they're not harmful, but maybe you don't need them, like hyaluronic acid. You probably don't need that during pregnancy because that's probably not a nutrient you want or need. And then they're also kind of filled with extra nutrients like some vitamin C, vitamin D, right? So you don't need extra of that because your prenatal is taking care for the most part, and your diet, right, is taking care of your nutrient needs and the levels you need it out. So ours is just very pure. It's just pure. And it took us, this is another thing, this part of the journey on having a prenatal company is it took us 6 months to source a collagen.
Wow.
Why? Why does that happen?
Because so part of our foundation, our philosophy is we want high quality, we want bioavailable, we want good things going in your body. We want them to work in the way they're intended. When we looked at the collagen, most collagen on the market, maybe a good majority of collagen on the market is sourced from countries that maybe you wouldn't feel super comfortable with purchasing something.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so in looking at kind of where we were going to source it, we're like, okay, well, we don't want it there because we're not sure those standards we can really trust. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, well, where else can we go? So we looked at collagen from the US, collagen from South America, collagen from Australia, New Zealand, and we tasted everything, right? And so for when you're pregnant, things that are really important to us when we're pregnant is we don't want to taste it, and we don't want it clumpy in our juices, and we want to be right. And some of them were like, no, thank you,
no, we're good.
I don't want to see it. I don't want to taste it.
Yeah.
So it was really important to us that we sourced a collagen that kind of met the needs that pregnant mamas have during their journey.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I have taken collagen for years, and I've taken it through both my pregnancies. But part of our breastfeeding journey this time has been a lot of food sensitivities that my little one has. Egg being the biggest one. So I have not been able to take collagen.
So there's egg in collagen?
It's sourced from, what is it?
Some of them are. Like
Beli's not.
Beli's not. So if there's, there's a number of different, collagens out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, that is good to know.
That's good to know for other listeners too that may have, because I stopped taking the one that I was taking because it had animal product in it and egg. And so, and I swear I can tell a difference in my joints.
What can you tell? Like your pain, like your achy
joints.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I
need to take collagen, I think. I was eating those like Jennifer Aniston collagen bars for a while because like anything Jennifer Aniston does, I'm like, okay, I guess I'll do that too.
Right, yeah.
Because she looks so freaking good.
Yeah, she does.
She does.
Oh my God. I mean, she hasn't had a kid, but her body is smoked.
Yeah, she's killing it.
Her body, but she'd be one of those people like you who like has a kid and then like has a six pack like in 3 weeks.
Well, she probably would, but at this age too.
I was eating those and I was like convincing myself. I was like, "Ooh, I look brighter," but I didn't actually notice any difference. But
that's so good to know about.
I need to take some collagen because I'm always achy, and when I was pregnant, oh my God, I had such round ligament pain and such hip pain.
Yeah.
Like my hips, my husband used to just press my hips together because it hurt so bad.
That counter pressure does feel so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll both start taking Beli.
We'll start taking Beli collagen.
Been taking it earlier.
I'll send it to you.
And sure. I told you, haven't been able to get pregnant I've been trying for my second for over a year, and we're trying kind of everything.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll start taking the Beli prenatal instead of the one that I'm taking.
Well, and
do the collagen just kind of.
I love Beli because of the ingredients. But it has this little like pepperminty, like taste to it. So it goes down really easily. And
it doesn't taste like fish when you burp?
No fish. Yeah, no fish.
'Cause that's like a major prenatal thing that I can't handle.
No, Beli's is the best one I've ever had. I have so many women message me whenever I post about it. The number one question is how many pills is it? And I always, 3, which to me is not that much. I can't remember what other ones are, but I've had a few women say, oh my gosh, the one I take is 8 or like
what?
6. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, like you switched to Beli then. Like that is so many things to swallow.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that goes into that. And that's the smallest we could possibly get. So we try to use the smallest capsule. But
and
there's just something
small, I will say. It's a good size capsule.
Thank you. It's the smallest you can get, I think. But here's an interesting fact, right? So in our first run of Beli Women, but this was back in 2021, we had 4 capsules. And we switched because we had different manufacturers. So we switched to a different manufacturer and we used a vitacholine, which is a branded form of choline in our second run. And because of that brand, we got our capsules down to 3.
Oh, cool. Wow. Okay.
Right. So there's different things you look at, like, do you use branded? Do you not?
Yeah.
I mean, branded versus generic, there should be really no, but the way the manufacturers also process it can really make the difference between how many capsules. In addition to that, I think there's really there's a balance between what your body needs and what is recommended that you get.
Sure.
And balancing that off of also what you can get from your food. Like, for example, like I said earlier, we don't put vitamin A in ours. It's recommended for pregnant women. It's pretty easy you can get from your diet.
Yeah.
But in excessive amounts, it's harmful in your first trimester.
Okay.
Right. So those are the types of decisions that we went through with every nutrient.
Yeah.
What supplier do we use? Where do they come from? Do we need it? Do we need it, in high amounts, or, does it really offset with what you can get pretty regularly or really, easily
from your diet?
Right? Because supplements are supposed to supplement your diet.
Yes.
And so really taking 8 pills, I mean, I don't know, right? I would look at, if you're considering that, kind of how much is really in there, and do you need all of those, and just kind of balancing what you get from your diet and then what really that supplement should do for you.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
One thing I do really want to cover while we have you is, so you have men's fertility supplements as well. So what, tell us about that. How can men, we kind of talked about this a little bit, how can men play a part? Obviously their health matters as well, but
I've never heard of a man taking a prenatal vitamin. Like I've never even heard of that.
Yeah. I know. I didn't either.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's define fertility, because, I think when we talk about fertility, it's about, fertility care or, going IVF, whatever that route may be. Fertility is just your ability to get pregnant. Right. So we didn't want to call it a fertility pill because people would tend to think, oh, I only can take it if I'm having some challenges, right? That I need to really think about. Your fertility health is actually an incredibly empowering part of your overall health, right? We talked about it earlier. So there are modifiable ways you can do to optimize your fertility, and diet and exercise and supplements are part of a very long list to do that. Sperm is 50% of the equation, right? And sperm carries the DNA. And if that sperm's not strong enough to carry or preserve that DNA, the pregnancy will not occur. In fact, poor sperm are almost one of the main reasons for recurrent miscarriage in women.
Oh, wow.
Because sperm carries the blueprint for the placenta on how to implant the egg, the embryo.
Okay.
So
that's really interesting.
That is really
sperm,
interesting.
Right?
I've never heard that.
It is. And
love that for women.
Yeah, right. I know. I'm
so
almost like, can we say that again?
Yeah. One more time.
And so men produce sperm every day. They take 3 months roughly to mature. A lot can happen along the way. So there are different sperm parameters: sperm count, sperm motility, morphology. And then a really, really big topic right now is DNA fragmentation, or how well is that DNA preserved in your sperm's head, right? And DNA fragmentation is oxidative stress, right? Antioxidants are really key for that part of the equation. So the good news for men is that, yes, you're producing it every day. And the nutrients in Beli for men, and why we called it a prenatal, just because people understand what prenatal means. And men are like, well, I'm not the one carrying the baby. Yes, I realize that, but there is some value in that descriptiveness of what that means versus having a fertility pill. You know what I mean? So there's nutrients specifically in Beli for men that you wouldn't typically see in a normal multivitamin. So we're talking CoQ10, talking NAC, we're talking L-carnitine, right? So there's like 6 different nutrients in there that we call our vitality blend, just because we want to point out that these are really nutrients that have been shown that could promote healthy sperm, healthy sperm production, healthy sperm growth, right? Help with oxidative stress to preserve that DNA, to hopefully be proactive against fragmentation, right? But those are, you can actually improve those parameters. And so men, I mean, that's one thing and a long thing that men should be doing, but diet, exercise, don't smoke weed, like don't, all of that. But also supplementing with nutrients is a very part of a good comprehensive plan for men's health. So, when you're talking about fertility on the women's side, you can improve egg quality.
Right.
You can't, right?
You can.
You can?
You can.
Oh.
You cannot make more eggs.
Okay,
and
that's what it is. You can't make more. You're born with the ones that you have.
You're born with the ones you have. And you can't
jump
stop
through the screen. Like
and you can't stop the aging process.
Yes.
Right, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But,
old eggs. She's got old eggs.
Eggs go through a maturation process as well. So you have a window in 90 days to where as they're maturing, nutrients can help promote egg quality. So yes, you can.
What about drinking wine while you're trying to conceive?
You know what? I have been waiting for her to say alcohol, and she's only mentioned drugs so far. So I'm like, this
is... not getting drunk, but like
Joni,
drinking a glass of wine or two while you're trying to conceive. Is there any studies done to say that that's preventing me from getting pregnant?
No, I think the studies say, or what I've seen is that, excess alcohol or drinking a lot, you can't do that, right? So, and you can't smoke, and there's a lot of things you can't do, right? But pretty common sense, but it does make a difference. It really, really does. It really does. So I wouldn't say that drinking in moderation and having a few glasses of wine, if you're downing a bottle every night, well, there's different things. But I haven't personally seen any studies that have said, drinking in moderate amounts is going to hinder. But excessively drinking, of course, has been shown, right? Everybody does recommend that, that
you don't do that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But you gotta have fun, right? You
gotta live. I have a toddler.
Wine.
I have to have a glass of wine at night.
Well, that's great news.
My God. Yeah, that is.
That's great news. I love that. This is so fascinating.
It's fascinating.
I could just sit here and keep.
What else? Is there anything that you feel like you want us to know about Beli that you haven't already said, or is there anything, Morgan, that you want to know?
Overall, I work in women's health, so I could literally sit here and talk to you until the end of the week Friday, because this is so fascinating to me. But I guess just like an overall, what would you tell either women or men and women, as a couple or partners, whatever, trying to conceive, trying to have a kid? What's what's the missing piece that we don't know? Or do you feel like there's something that we don't understand? And maybe that's men's part.
Maybe it's just the healthy living that she's been saying. Yeah.
What do you think that there's not a misconception, but maybe just something that you wish that more people knew in this chapter of their lives, I guess is the best, is what I'm trying to get out.
Yeah, there's a few gaping holes. Yeah. I think in gaping holes. And I think that Rescripted came out with a state of sex education in America. which interviewed people to say, how much do you know about what it takes to get pregnant, right? And it's very, very little knowledge in terms of, I think we have a lot of education on what it takes not to.
Yes.
In fact, oh my gosh. And you guys can do the same thing where you are. Every time I'm in a different city, I go to Target. I'm like, what does their fertility aisle look like? What does their pregnancy aisle look like? What does their family planning, right? It's named kind of different things.
Yeah.
Most like stores that I go into, and you go to the fertility aisle if they have it, which a lot of people do. They have fertility, family planning, reproductive health. It is 2 products for fertility, quote unquote, and then 5 rows of condoms and Plan B.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's our whole fertility awareness in America.
Yeah.
Plan B and condoms.
And that kind of says all of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm like, well, I'm not sure. Like if I was to go into the store and go, okay, I'm going to think about getting pregnant. I want to get my baby ready. What do I do?
Yeah.
And there's nowhere to go.
We're not taught that.
No.
You not only have to do the work yourself, you have to do the very hard work and research yourself. It's not common knowledge.
I thought you could just get pregnant until I was trying to get pregnant. I thought you could literally just get pregnant if you had unprotected sex at any moment in your cycle. Like I didn't know that there was only a certain window.
Yeah.
And I just tried not to get pregnant my whole life. So once I was trying to get pregnant, I was shocked at how it really is just these few days that you have.
Yeah. There's not enough information that we need to be taught.
But I also didn't know that the sperm can live for 5 days. I didn't know about the ovulation window.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know any of it.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, unfortunately, an expert on all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You've learned a lot.
But it is crazy how little we're taught about sex in general. I mean, and how little we were talking in one of the other episodes about how little women know about their anatomy and their vaginas.
Yeah.
Women just don't. I don't think anyone bothers to talk to us about it.
No, because
and so we don't.
Said, it's all don't get pregnant.
Don't get pregnant.
We actually had another guest on the show. She came on here because we interviewed her about her infertility, she now has a baby at home with her. But but one of the things that really stuck out to me with her episode was, she grew up hearing "don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant," and as soon as she wanted to get pregnant, she couldn't get pregnant.
Yeah, and
I think that's how it is for so many of us. We grow up hearing "don't get pregnant," but there's no education on like, what does that even mean? Like, and how does our body work, and what is our anatomy? And if we did want to get pregnant, what does that entail? And so what happens is you end up, wanting to get pregnant, and you're like, well,
I guess I got to learn everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're however many decades into your life, and you don't even know that, that your cycle is 28 days or 31. Like you,
and I'm like you, where I'm a musician, and all of my friends in LA and New York are actors and musicians. And so all of my female friends have tried later in life, have been, they get married later, they have kids later because you're touring or you're on set. And you're not thinking about it till your mid 30s. And then you're like in your late 30s and you're like, oh shit, I have to have a kid.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my friends, so many women I know struggle with infertility because we really aren't taught, okay, you do really have this window. You have to be healthy.
Yeah.
And you really should start thinking about it at a certain age.
Yeah.
And I tell girlfriends that now, I'm like, I know you might not think you're ready, and maybe you're not ready.
Right.
But you do in your 30s need to be thinking about this. If it is something that you want.
Even 5,
if you do want to have a baby, I would get tested.
Yeah.
I would see where you're at. Because I had no idea until I started trying.
Yeah.
I got all the tests done, and thankfully it was pretty easy to have my first, but I had no idea.
Yeah.
How hard it would be, especially later in life. Right.
Well, and there's so much that goes into that. Like, deficiencies in vitamins and all of that as well. And we don't know. And it sucks to get to a place where, where you are, where you're there and you're like, okay, now I have to learn.
Well, now I have to like do all of it, and I'll probably have to do IVF, which, it's not a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination. Lots of IVF fails. So it's just, you get to this point where you have to learn all of it. And I just think it's so important that we educate ourselves.
Yeah. I think what's helpful is hearing a place you can start. With nutrition and with, supplements like Beli. That's awesome.
Totally.
That was going to be my 2 cents is I have had to turn the mic away from myself because this is literally my favorite topic of all like time, Morgan's and the science behind it and all of that. So this has been super insightful. I just think hearing kind of the woman and then the man and then like how those come together, because I didn't have trouble either time, but I feel the effects of my DiGiorno pizzas and my Taco Bell and my spicy chicken sandwiches. And so, although I didn't have trouble getting pregnant, I definitely feel also the difference in other vitamins I've taken and like how those do affect my morning sickness and energy levels and things like that. And so, I don't know. This has just been so interesting.
We're all going to switch to Beli, and she's already on Beli.
Oh my gosh. It is. Yeah. I could talk to you all day, Joni. This is amazing.
I love that. I could too. Obviously, I'm very passionate about it. But I think, for anybody who's starting this journey, I think you're right. I think go to your doctor. A lot of times we'll say, come back in a year if it doesn't work for you, or come back in 6 months, depending on how old you are. And I think go to your doctor and just, be your own advocate and do what you need to do to find out about your fertility health, because it's incredibly important. You don't want to waste a year waiting, right? When there's things that you can do. And here's the good news. You can always get healthy. And I would say do that long before you're thinking about having a baby. If you're on birth control, make sure that you're looking at those nutrients that may be depleted, because you're going to want to make sure you're supplementing, whether it's through your diet or through a vitamin, right? So when you do come off of birth control and you're like, I am ready to go, at least you've taken some positive steps to prep your body for that. Yeah. And then you have, there's lots of tests, fertility tests out there at home. You can test the quality of your eggs, or, there's a ton of at-home tests. There's sperm tests at home. And, I think that's super empowering for women and for men. And I think it's also very scary, right? Yeah. You take these tests and you don't have any context around it. It can be really frightening or it can be really empowering, but it is available to you. And then, on that journey, just, start right away. Have your guy see his doctor, have your guy take, a men's prenatal, or make sure he's getting healthy. And for women, you do the same, because there's only so much we can control. And our health is the one thing we at least have some power over, right, in this whole crazy process. And advocating for yourself and getting out in front of it versus waiting, I think, is where everybody's headed. But, I think it's hard for people to go, out of day one, I'm going to go see a fertility specialist. Right. It's just like not quite mainstream yet.
No.
But, your OBGYN, your primary care, a urologist who specializes in men's fertility can be an awesome, great first place to start, and do it. Totally. Don't wait. Do it. And I think that's what's really important. And for women, we have the timeline against us, right? So, but early on, even before you're thinking about, and I grapple with this like every day. What do I call this? Is it fertility? Is it preconception health? Is it reproductive health? Right? Because, we want to get to the people like long before you're like, I'm not going to try for a baby for like 2 years. Well, you still need to do these things, right?
You need to do them now.
Right. But preconception means I'm in that window and, I'm trying to get healthy. So I grapple with, how do I think about what I call this?
Like what encompasses it all.
Yeah, exactly. But, advocate for yourself, get ahead of it, talk to your doctor. Don't wait. I mean, that's all the things I would say right now, because 1 in 5 people will seek fertility care in their lifetime.
Crazy.
And that's getting pregnant, staying pregnant, right? Whatever that may be. And like, I think who mentioned it earlier, whether it's you're tired, or I can't breastfeed, or, I've got some baby blues. I need to see a doctor, or, I've got nausea and morning sickness. I mean, there's lots, right? There's lots to consider on this journey. And that's where, your health and your prenatal vitamins should, right, be that part of your journey that can at least assist you in a lot of those areas.
Well, this was thank you so much amazing. For being here and answering our questions.
Morg, do you have any questions or anything? Are you?
No, I'm just thrilled to have been this conversation. It's so
we're
cool.
excited to have you.
I'm so excited to release this episode because I just learned so much.
I know, I learned so much too.
Everybody needs to hear all of this.
Yeah.
This was wonderful.
Well, thank you. And thank you guys for sharing your journeys too. I think it's number one important that we share our journeys. I wish more men would, but they won't. We're working on that.
Yeah.
But just thank you so much because the platform and the awareness that you guys are bringing to this conversation is invaluable.
Thank you.
And sharing your journeys, it's personal.
Yeah.
And, and we all realize that. And, I wish I had this, and you guys to talk to when I was going through my own, because it can be a really isolating, I think you mentioned that earlier, really isolating thing to do. And the more we talk about it and share and come together,
the better it'll be.
Yes. So powerful.
And totally. And we get a lot of people contact us saying like, I feel so much less alone.
Yeah.
And it makes us so happy because we found each other because we're really lucky. We live in a neighborhood where we all are basically neighbors.
Yeah.
But before we met each other, we all felt extremely lonely as mothers, and it was hard.
Yeah. Oh, it's so hard, and it shouldn't be because it's the hardest job in the world with people on your team. So and with a village. So having to do it alone, no mom should feel alone.
No.
So the more stories shared, the better.
So thank you, and everybody go and get Beli if you are looking for a prenatal or collagen, or you want your husband or partner to be on a prenatal to get their sperm health in check. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about that too.
But I'm team Beli. I've been using it for a long time. So, and I plan on, I'm hoping I'll be breastfeeding for a while. So I'm planning on still using it.
Yeah.
For the foreseeable future. So,
and we are working on a breastfeeding product too.
Amazing.
So,
okay, cool. Well, hopefully I'll be feeding long enough to try it out.
Yeah.
There you go.
We fought so hard for it. I want to hold on to the journey for a while.
There you go.
Well, Joni, thank you so much. This was absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joni.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Y'all, that was so fun.
Yeah, it was so good.
That were you like reeling back there, Morgan?
Yeah, I was like, I got a job openings.
Oh my gosh,
like,
but really?
support.
That would be awesome, though. It's for you to work
more. We all know
more
this.
More
like,
well, I mean, long-term goals, Macy. Like life, long-term. One of my dreams is to be like, in the fertility world.
Yeah.
I see that for you.
Even like as a side gig.
Yeah.
Because I love where I'm at, and but even as like a certification. So
I want that. I want.
You're the reason that I know what I'm doing as far as all this shit that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Well,
is you. I just ask you everything. I send you pictures of my Mira levels, which I haven't done in a while. But
did you learn a lot from this, Morg?
I did.
You did? Okay. So even with as much as this was still, because I was like, everything. I was just like, more.
I know. I could.
But I don't know half as much as you.
I didn't know half of those things.
Yeah, the sperm aspect.
Yeah, I loved that
part.
That's
wild.
Fascinating.
I just love that we can put some of the burden and blame and responsibility on men too.
Yeah,
no, totally. I mean, she made a great point of at least from my experience, and I feel like it's probably well validated with other people's as well. But whenever you go to okay, babe, let's plan and let's start trying. It's 100% okay, babe, well, get your diet under control, get on your vitamins, all this stuff. You
have to coach them into doing everything, and they don't do it.
Yeah, and it's never an automatic thought of oh, I have a part in this other than just
to get off
you.
Yeah.
Nick loves I feel like Nick's going to be like depressed when we actually he's going to be happy if we get pregnant.
But he's not going to.
But he's going to be like, I'm not getting laid all the time. Like it's so fun for him for us to be trying this long because we have to do it all the time. And he's like having the time of his life. And I'm
not taking vitamins.
Yeah.
Ending this. That's
like
funny.
this month, not to just like continue talking, but like this ovulation cycle, we did the Diva cup. So we did 1 day of the Mosey baby. We did 2 days of the Diva disc, like the soft disc.
Yeah.
Where you put it in after they go.
Oh.
And then you shove it all the way up there so it sits on your cervix.
Okay.
And you sleep overnight with it.
Oh, wow. I didn't know you did that.
So,
Okay.
let me tell you something though. When you do the Diva disc, when you do the soft disc thingy, no goo comes out. It's just, you're gooless.
Ultra goo.
So then, but then the next day, like you go and take it out and it's like goo city.
Oh.
But it's not like coming out, it's like how, how we always talk about how it's like
it just keeps coming and coming.
You just goo for 2 days and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Every time.
With the feeling and the concept.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about me. So we have our new segment that we're going to do again called
What do you want to know?
You want to know?
What's the question?
My phone was muted. The question is, how did you decide on your kids' names?
Oh, cute. Your story's better than mine. You start.
So I feel like I've talked about this, but when I got pregnant with Vera, fairly early on, I knew she was a girl just because I had a feeling. I just felt I desperately wanted a girl. So it would have been awkward if I had a boy because of how like outspoken I was about wanting a girl. And I had a dream one night. We were gonna name her Luna. That was the name that I had picked for her, and Nick and I agreed on it, and we loved it. But then I had a dream one night, and I had a little daughter named Farah with curly, dark brown hair. And I woke up and I told Nick, I said, we're having a girl and her name is Farah. And he was like, I love that. I love that name.
She couldn't be anything else.
Yeah.
She literally could not be anything
And then
else.
I called my brothers. I was like, what do you guys think about the name Farah? They were like Farrah Fawcett? I was like, yeah. They were like, we actually love it.
Yeah.
Nobody had one thing to say. I mean, a couple, like my dad's wife, like called her Farah for a minute. And like, and like, I think Nick's mom, like there was a couple things where they were like, isn't that like, where is that even from? Like what? But pretty soon after I said it, pretty much everyone was on board.
No,
but people have to talk shit.
Oh yeah.
If you tell anyone your baby name, people are going to tell you, oh, don't do this.
Yeah.
Don't do that. But she was in a dream and I knew I was going to have her and I knew basically what she would look like too. And it was crazy. It was like, I was like psychic.
Well, yeah, and here she is. She couldn't be anything other than Farah.
She is a Farah. Yeah. What about you?
Mine are, we liked the name Eli. Neither of their first names have any significance other than we liked them. And then Wyatt, we picked because we like the name Wyatt, but it also, Eli and Wyatt sound good together.
Yeah.
Their middle names, though, both have significance.
Yeah.
Eli, his middle name is Griggs, which is Chase's grandparents. His mom's parents are Nana and Pawpaw. They're the greatest two humans in the entire world. They've been married for like, I think 54 years, maybe 55 is coming up. And they're just, they hung the moon, like in my eyes and everybody's eyes. They're not even my grandparents, but like they're my grandparents. And so we wanted to honor them. And so Eli Griggs, that is their last name. And then Wyatt's middle name is Mark, after my dad, who I'm not going to get emotional, but
yes, you are. You always get emotional. What are you talking about?
But it meant honestly just as much to Chase as it did to me to honor my dad, because of the not only dad that he's been, but specifically the grandfather that he has been to Brooks, my nephew, and then Eli. And so when we were sitting down coming up with them, I think before we even picked Wyatt, we both had, agreed that Mark would be the name. Honestly, even if it like didn't flow, if we had decided to name Wyatt Clark, he would have been Clark Mark. We would have Mark was
that was it.
Mark was non-negotiable.
And Farrah Grace is Grace for my grandmother, my dad's
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Mom. Yeah. Okay. And her and I were extremely close. Little known fact, I also have her name tattooed on my back as a tramp stamp. Didn't know that it was called a tramp stamp. Didn't know that's what that represented, but Grace is tattooed on my lower back.
And antlers.
Yeah.
Love it.
She is rolling in her grave.
A hoe tag.
Yeah, my hoe tag is my grandma's name.
She's like, Amie.
Yeah, she's like, fuck this. What about Heart?
Oh, I'll jump in. Heart, I liked it. And I hated every name. I was like, oh, I can't give my kid that name. I can't give my kid that name. I can't. And then I made Bill read like top. It was like, I think it was like at least 1,000 name long list, and I made him read it from the least popular to the most popular. And I just wrote down all the ones I liked from that. And then Heart came up and it stuck.
He is a Heart.
Mm-hmm. He was going to be Jude, but
that's cute too.
Jude is cute, but he's such a Heart.
And it's like Jude is really popular right now. I was like, that's kind of out for me. And then Ryman is his middle name. Actually didn't even come up from living in Nashville.
Yeah.
I was pretty set on like, oh my gosh, she's not going to have a middle name because the first name was hard enough. And one day I just like came across it as a name on the internet somewhere. And I think I was like 30 weeks pregnant at this point.
Yeah.
And I texted Bill, he was at work. I was like, what about Ryman for a middle name? And he was like, actually, yeah. And I was like, oh my word. Okay.
He has
a full name. And then Rudy is, again, I just randomly found it on the internet
Rudy.
after hating literally every name.
I love the name Rudy.
I'm like, we got to come up with some new names, y'all, and not the ones with all the Y's in it that Utah moms want to put everywhere. Well, that's not the names we're going to come up with.
I don't know about this.
Oh, just all the McKaylee.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, moms. Love you and love your kids, but I'm not on board with that name. And so Rudy, and then Ray is my meeting Bill in the middle of that's Bill's dad's middle name, because I'm not putting William in the names. So sorry, kings. Smash the patriarchy. Ray's all you're getting.
Love
it. Thanks, y'all, for asking me.
Yeah, thanks for asking, guys. And we love you, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers to Sperm.
Cheers to Sperm.
And everything it entails.
And its responsibility.
Rock, rock, rock me, mama.